All right. Let's see. Stock market's down 3%. We're having a webinar. Let's see if I'm doing everything correctly here. This is new to me. This particular platform, which is Webinar Jam, which ties in with Google Hangouts. So it'll be fun to see how it works. So far, everything has gone pretty well. And I'm hoping that it will continue to be that way. So actually, I have a laptop with an extra screen. So if I look over at this screen, you'll think I'm looking away, but I'm actually looking at what's being broadcast, and we'll screen share here in just a minute. Anyway, hello there. We are live, and this is Tim Patterson, Trade Show Guy, and this is the first webinar I'm doing this year out of a dozen at least. I'm going to do one a month. That's kind of a new plan I've got. I like webinars; they're fun. I've participated in others. I've done things by myself. I've used other platforms. Did a little research and thought that this would probably be a good fit for what I would like to do. There's some great stuff in the back office that I really like with Webinar Jam. This is called your Trade Show Marketing Questions Answered. Let me look over here and see what we have. Oh, we got some more attendees. All right, so a few people are showing up. That's nice. Actually, we'll give it about a minute before we actually start. I have a chat box over there. Let me see if I can see anything. You're welcome to chime in with a question, with a comment, anything you want. I should be able to see those if I look correctly over here. Click to mute the chat. Don't want to do that. So I wrote one in there. Hello. In fact, if you are able to chat and you see the box over there, the Webinar Jam, I'd love to see you chime in. I can see a couple of people are in the room, so I'm hoping that you are able to put a note in the chat box there. Let's see here. Got my old Kissin' radio cup. Spent 25 years in radio, and I got a cup out of it. All right. Anybody have a chance to chime in on the chat? I haven't seen anything yet. Let me look down here and see what I've got. Because I'm trying to watch it on my phone as well, which is kind of weird. Let's see. I have chat room. Okay. Again, I'm not sure how this is all going to work. Will be fun. But the thing is, it will be recorded, and we'll be able to watch it back on YouTube and on our websites and all that stuff. I'm going to go and put my screen up so you can see the screen here. So hopefully you're seeing the screen that says your Trade Show Marketing Questions Answered. Tim Patterson, Trade Show Guy. All right. Again, I'm not getting anybody writing in anything in the chat room yet, so hopefully you can see that. If not, there is actually a little thing off to the left. You may have to download a Webinar Jam Studio little app that goes with Google Hangouts. I'm told that some people do, some people don't. Again, that's one of the issues that I'm not clear on with this particular thing. It's a new run through, and the thing is, I have about a couple of dozen people registered for this particular webinar, and my experience is about 25% to 35% actually show up that have registered. So I think there's a low bar for accomplishment today, but the thing is, I want it to work as well as possible so that as we build through the year, it will grow and work really well. And of course, I want the replay to be worth looking at as well. So we'll go ahead and jump in here in just a second or so. Oh, I see Deb there. Thanks, Deb. How's everything down in Florida? I hope it's good. We actually have sunshine today in Oregon, which is kind of rare the last few weeks. And I'm hoping to go skiing again this weekend where it'll be sunny. I've been up 5 times and it's been snowy and blowy every single time. And it's hard because it's hard to ski when you can't see where you're going. But I go anyway because I'm such a ski bum. Anyway, we'll get started here. I want to thank you for joining us today for the first of our 2016 webinars. We're doing once a month at least through 2016 and perhaps beyond. If these go as well as I hope they go. So, who am I and why do I call myself Trade Show Guy? Well, I've been in the trade show exhibit industry for 14 years. I spent 9+ years at a small company here in Salem, Oregon called Interpretive Exhibits. I was VP of Sales and Marketing, averaging about $300,000 a year in exhibit sales. In 2011, the owner retired, and I started Communication One Exhibits to continue to work with a lot of those same clients. In the beginning, I have to admit, I knew nothing. I'd spent, 26 years in radio, doing a lot of things on air for the most part, behind the scenes, production, programming, music director, working with a lot of clients. I always like working with clients. But in the beginning, to learn about trade show marketing, I called literally dozens of experts and exhibitors and writers and consultants and authors and interviewed them. And given the fact that I had the ability to record these interviews, I ended up putting them on our company website. And that when podcasting came around, I just converted that all to a podcast. So there was kind of this ongoing information. I was learning lots, and I was sharing that information as well. Late last year, so basically we've been doing that for a long time, and I'm always learning and writing. And what I find out about writing for my blog, TradeshowGuyblog.com, is that if you want to write about something, you have to learn a little bit more about it. You might think you know something, but you have to do research. You have to talk to people. So I like writing because it helps you to become a better learner. Late last year, after lots of discussion and thought, we started rebranding the company Communication One Exhibits to Trade Show Guy Exhibits to take advantage of the Trade Show Guy name that's been built up over 7 years. January, 7 years blogging at TradeshowGuyblog.com, along with all the training and speaking and writing I've done as Trade Show Guy. At Trade Show Guy Exhibits, we take care of exhibitors' needs, from booth design, fabrication to pre-show marketing, booth staff training, and much more. You can find more at TradeshowGuyExhibits.com and TradeshowGuyblog.com. And to help make it easier to find out more about our webinars, we've secured the website TradeshowGuyWebinars.com, where you can always register for the next webinar and where we'll post replays of previous webinars, as well as the blog, of course. Finally, late last year, November, I published a book called Trade Show Success, 14 Proven Steps to Take Your Trade Show Marketing to the Next Level. You can order it anytime at Amazon.com. You can also download a free copy at TradeshowSuccessBook.com, and I'll tell you how to get a special version at the end of today's webinar. So for today's webinar, the first of the year and the first of many to come, I've decided to answer questions. There are always questions that come up in the trade show industry, and I've collected several of them. Of course, when you sign up for the webinar, you should have received an email that invited you to submit your own question for today's webinar, and I'll be answering many of them, as many as I can. There's a chat box where you can submit your question. I'll keep answering them the best I can for as long as there are questions. Whether we go 20 minutes or 90, we'll just see what happens here. So, finally, a quick word about the platform Webinar Jam. I think I mentioned it. This is a platform that works with Google Hangouts, has lots of bells and whistles, so I'm looking forward to exploring it through the year. I'd be curious to know, from your perspective, how it works, and I'd love to hear that. So after that all is said and done, let me know. Stick around to the end. I'll get you a free copy of the Trade Show Guy post-show follow-up checklist and give you a chance to pick up a sweet deal on a workbook version of my new Trade Show Success, 14 Proven Steps to Take Your Trade Show Marketing to the Next Level, the book. So I'm going to move into the questions. By the way, if you have a question, feel free to drop it in the chat box. I think we'll answer those after I go through some prepared questions. Now, the prepared questions actually have come up over the last several months from various things. People have written me. They've posted questions on my blog. I just sort of collected them. That's where I decided to do this webinar, is just answer people's questions based on a lot of things that people are asking. So first question. Where'd we go? The button didn't work. Oh, yes, questions. And we have lots of questions. One question: is there anything we can do to increase foot traffic, especially in a poor location? Well, That actually picture was taken last year in a booth on the last day at the Expo West. This dog was looking poor and lost, and no one was coming to the booth. My sense is, if you've been given a poor location, you really have to step up your pre-show marketing. And that means letting potential clients and visitors know where you are. And that could mean a number of things. So sending out emails to a list if you have one, getting involved in social media to really let people know where you are. And of course, have something in your booth that's worth coming to. So what is that something? Well, could be an activity built around your product or service. More than just a spinning wheel. Now, I'm generally against spinning wheels, because if you're giving away little trinkets and tchotchkes, that's not going to be your client list. But if you can tie it into something you're doing in the booth, and you're giving away something that is very directly related to your product or service, that might be thing, because people do line up and want to win things. But if you can find a way to capture information, qualify them, disqualify them, that sort of thing, that's not, I'm not totally against spinning wheels. Maybe you have a notable or famous person that you know of that you can have to come by your booth and be a guest for a brief time, a couple of times during the show. That would be something. That could be a draw. It could be a product launch that really gets people's attention. In any case, the critical thing is that whatever is going on in your booth needs to be noteworthy enough so the people who do see it are very engaged, and perhaps engaged enough to tell other people. All right. Next question. Pre-show marketing. How to be heard through all the noise attendees hear before the show. Now more than ever, it's critical to state your value proposition before the attendee boards the plane. This was one of the questions I got submitted after I started the webinar registration. It came through our SurveyMonkey web questionnaire. Again, I guess I would answer this very similarly to the first question. What will get people talking about your booth, and what's going on in it? Just read an article like this one in Exhibitor magazine about a company called Universal Audio Incorporated. They were at NAMM, the National Association of Music Merchants show. Long story short, they have a very deep history, about 60 years. A lot of their competitors have been around for 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 years. So they have a deep history. So they ended up creating a booth that had a bunch of old mixing boards, audio mixing boards, tape recorders, and more, that showed where all of this stuff came from. So very well done that they had people waiting in line to get their picture taken with the old gear, because they take these pictures, probably post them online, make sure people had a copy of them, that sort of thing. Very creative, very engaging stuff. So much so that a lot of music stars that were attending the show stopped by. They had pictures with Stevie Wonder, Herbie Hancock, some members of Depeche Mode, and the results, thought these would be worth sharing. They actually increased their leads from 1,400 in 2014 to 2,500 in 2015. So spending the time to get creative about what was in the booth was a great success for them. So pre-show marketing, to me, really consists of a number of channels: email, direct mail, PR, media, social media. And of course, make sure you get on the phone and share that marketing message with a value proposition with those clients and prospects you know are going to be there, so you can invite them by and perhaps even set up appointments. There's a lot that goes on into getting your message out prior to the show, and it doesn't seem that a lot of companies spend as much time at this as they should, in my opinion. All right, another question is, what are some ways to conduct outreach prior to clients, prior to the show? I think if you have a business relationship with a client, make a call, invite them. I think that's the first thing. That's the most personal thing, other than dropping by and saying, hey, come to the show. Pick up the phone, call them, set an appointment. If you have an attractive marketing piece that you can send people ahead of time, do that. I think email is still fine, but a personal touch is best. So if you know them, pick up the phone. That's probably the most direct way. Again, we talked about email, direct marketing pieces, things like that. What's the best way to compare renting versus buying a new booth? Well, there are pros and cons to each. So no matter what you do, there's a little bit of a trade-off. So let's look at some of the pros and cons for renting versus purchasing. Renting, one of the pros would be you're not tied to a specific look for each show. In the short term, you'll pay less for a rental. You can still customize it to a pretty good extent. You don't have to worry about storage. Shipping is handled by a rental firm. I keep getting these email pop-ups. I got to stop this. So renting cons, if you rent more than 3 or 4 times, you'll pay for the cost of a new booth. So long-term, not that great of a deal for renting versus buying. If you're going to be exhibiting 4, 5, 6, 7 times a year, probably buying is what you really want to do. You want to lock in on that look that you have. It might take a little getting used to if you have a different booth each time. That's one of the downsides of renting, because if you've got a group in your team that 4, 5, 6, or 10 or 15 people that go to the show, they've got to get used to a brand new booth. However, if you have a booth that the company owns, there's a good chance that they know exactly where things are. They know where to find things when they get there. They know where the products are stored. With a rental, perhaps that takes a little more getting used to. Again, not a bad thing, but one of the things you have to deal with. While you can customize a rental, a custom design booth really can go much farther in representing your brand with a great designer. So you can customize to a great extent with rentals, but I think if you're going to purchase one, have one designed, you can actually go further. So let's look at the purchasing pros and cons. One of the pros, of course, the look and feel of your booth can be exactly what you and your budget allow. You can create a booth that no other company will match at all in look and feel. And you can see that it shows some of those companies that have just absolutely one-of-a-kind booths, nothing like it out there, and it really nails their identity. Of course, all functionalities can be covered in an initial design, so you can customize it down to the T. You can use materials that you wouldn't typically find in a rental. I've seen booths made from reclaimed wood, bicycle parts, pallets, whatever you want that fits your look and feel. You can do that with a custom booth. You probably couldn't do with a rental, so it probably wouldn't work too well. So some of the cons to buying your own booth: once you purchase it, you're locked into that for a long time, unless you want to spend money to change that as time goes on. Custom purchase will cost more than a rental by a factor of 2 to 3 to 4 times, depending on what you were getting. And you'll often have to have your own storage space, or, of course, pay an exhibit house or a warehouse to store it for you and ship it in and out. A rental, you don't own it, so you don't have to store it. So those are some of the pros and cons, how to compare renting versus buying a new booth. All right, so let's see here. What is the best way to draw attendees to your booth? Well, this goes back to the first couple of questions. There's no really absolute best way, but it all boils down to what we've talked about before. What is it that's going on in your booth that's worth making a trip? Is it some sort of interactive element? Is it a famous personality? Is it a professional presenter? Is it a clever or a creative way of showing off your product or service? This is the timeless challenge of trade show exhibitors. What can you come up with as a draw to your booth that compels people to stop and become engaged enough so that they share it with others? So actually was looking through some of the stuff I'd written recently, and I came up with a article that I wrote for Handshake webinars, handshake.com last year, and I had 9 different ways that you could possibly look at to draw attendees to your booth. Demonstrations. If it's a good demonstration, people will stop and take a look. Celebrities. I've seen authors in the industry stop, and if they're giving away free books and signing the thing, that will get people to line up. Moving attractors, something that catches people's eyes that they want to go engage with. Giveaways, free samples are always good. Sometimes if it's a food company and you're giving away food, they'll just grab a bite and be gone. But nonetheless, they get a chance to sample your food and see what kind of product you have. If you have an unusual product or an unusual exhibit, that is another way to draw people to your booth. One of the best ways is if you have people that know what they're doing, that are smiling and engaged with customers. And so a trained booth staff is a great way to draw attendees to your booth. And so this means knowing how to engage, knowing how not to do things like stay on your phone in the back of the booth, or eat or ignore people going by, but being out next to the edge of the booth and smiling and having nothing in your hands, asking pertinent questions, not impertinent, pertinent questions. Smiling is a great thing. Music. I've seen small booths with a 2 or 3 piece band in there that gets people to stop and look. Again, I don't know how effective that is to getting your potential clients in the booth, but it does draw people to your booth for a time. You can actually do media things at your booth. Now, when I say things, I've actually seen this done pretty well. I've seen radio studios set up. I've seen panels, discussions inside a larger booth where they have a TV camera and an interviewer and 2 or 3 people. And this is broadcast either in the booth or throughout the venue. And so there's different ways you can use media to get people. People always like to stop and watch those types of things because, hey, something's going on. There's a sense inside that if there's a radio microphone or a TV camera there, it's worth something. So they take a look and stop. So that gets people to stop as well. What are the best methods for assessing a particular trade show to see if it's a good fit for you? By the way, this picture at the right on this particular one is White Wave. That's silk and everything out of, I believe, Denver, Colorado. And this is one of the booths that I thought was unique. It's made out of pallets, and they've got a framework around it they hang the pallets on. But this is something that you really probably couldn't do with a rental. This is very custom, and they've got things inside which make it very custom. It's very tall, and it's interesting because it attracts people's attention. All right, so the question is, what are the best methods for assessing a particular trade show to see if it's a good fit for you? Well, I think the best practices for gauging the viability of exhibiting at a trade show would include, number one, getting as much information from the show website as they have, type of audience, demographics, buyers, decision makers, number of attendees, number of exhibitors. That gives you a sense of the show. And you'll get a lot of great information from that. If you see that a lot of your main competitors are there, there's probably a good chance you should be there as well. If you don't see your competitors there, the chances are, well, if they're not going, maybe I shouldn't go. But on the other hand, maybe the audience is something that your competitors are missing. So again, take a good look. Secondly, if you can, walk the show as an attendee prior to exhibiting, unless, of course, you've heard such great things about the show that you just know it will be a good venue. And I'm kind of speaking from someone who's rather new to an industry and has a company that they're new to, and they want to assess a show that maybe the company hasn't been to before. Because typically, if you've been in an industry a long time, you know the good shows that you should go to, and you know the ones you shouldn't. But we're assessing kind of from the newbie sort of standpoint. While at the show, and as an attendee, not as an exhibitor, but you're assessing the show, talk to lots of people. Talk to attendees, talk to exhibitors, tell people that you're interested in exhibiting, ask them to give you their impressions. Nothing really beats walking the show floor and taking time. Take all day, spend a couple days there at the show. You'll get a very good feel, and you'll get a sense of whether you should be at that show the next time they have it. And finally, once all that's said and done, if you have any final questions, chat with show organizers and ask them any of those questions that you may have. Next question was submitted. I'm looking for electronic ways to collect leads at smaller shows where scanners or barcodes are not available. That is a bit of a challenge. A number of things come to mind. I had to do some research on this. I was familiar with a couple of things, but I knew there was more than that out there. There are certain iPad apps you can use to engage attendees and capture information, for example. There are things like prizepad.com. I checked those guys out. iLeads, now they're kind of a mobile badge scanner, but I believe this is one of those things where the show organizer has to set it up so that the show organizer has to be involved. But you can do this once that's set up on your smartphone or an iPad. Expo B, Industry Tracker, G2 Planet, which is event lead generation and management. iCapture Leads, which works on iPads. Insinno Exhibition, INSINNO : exhibition. That's another one. And if you just search for these online, I'll send a link out to where you can actually capture these later. So I'll make sure this happens. Lion Expo, N200 Visit Connect, New Leads, which is Trade Show Lead Solution, Quick Tap Survey, Will Work Lead Capture, Zing Events, which is XING events, Zoho CRM, which is a leads capture, Zuant, ZUANT, which is a mobile lead capture. There are lots of them out there. So I would think you would just do an online search for mobile lead capture or mobile lead trade show app, something like that, and you're going to find a lot of things out there. I'm guessing that Not too many of them are free, I would say you kind of get what you pay for. So look at them, see what works best for you, and ask a lot of questions and see if you can find other people that have had experience with that to see how that works for them. But yeah, electronic lead capturing is certainly a big issue at shows. Better than writing things down, but you want to make sure you get one that works well for you. Someone asked if I could do one thing in your 14-step book, what would it be? And I had to think about that. I would say, hey, you got to do them all, right? Or at least most of them. Although I realize resources and available time and funds may keep you from doing all of them. So if I had to pick a couple, like a top 2 or 3, as opposed to one, pre-show marketing would be one of the top 3. Having a well-trained staff that knows how to engage with an audience, that would be one of the top 2 or 3. And find something that's intriguing in your booth that captures people's attention. If you can do those things well, a lot of the other things, like having a great booth, having media and PR and so forth that I talk about in the book, may not be quite as critical. I think you should look at, as time goes by, figuring out how to do all of those things. But the top 3, again, would be pre-show marketing, having a great staff that knows what they're doing, and having something that's an attractor and intriguing inside your booth so that people are talking a little bit about it, or they see something, they have to come over and take a look. Another question that came up through the survey was, how much should I spend on marketing collateral? Again, it's a hard one to pin down because that varies so much between companies and goals. But I would say that you know your market, you know your customers better than anyone. So does that mean that your clients and prospects need sell sheets to make decisions? Do they want them in hand? Do they prefer electronic versions? If you can save some money by not printing and by offering those items via a PDF download, that is one way to save some money. You can make them available via email or by signing up on an iPad or by scanning a QR code, for example. If you're not sure how your market prefers to get this information and how much, ask them. But I would say make those things available both ways, print and electronic, see which is most popular. It may be that you can save money by making them available electronically. But on the other hand, if they really want to fill a folder with paper, maybe that's what works best for your audience. So that's kind of a question that doesn't really have a specific answer, but just look at all the options that you have available to get that information to your potential market. As opposed to marketing collateral, we're talking postcards and direct mail pieces and things like that. Again, how much can you invest in getting that audience there? What's the payoff? Can you measure the return on investment? Those types of things are going to come up in your discussion. What about what's the best record keeping method, and what records should I keep? I kind of, my default is keep everything. Keep everything. I always recommend keeping records on everything and keeping it in multiple places, like a cloud server, such as a Dropbox, so that they can be accessed anywhere. I've had Dropbox save my butt a number of times on the trade show floor by being able to access setup plans and things like that. So in the cloud, obviously, however that works best for you. Details on the booth, logistics of the show, contact information, travel costs, collateral costs, lead generation, and the sales that result from those leads, booth photos, competitors information, as much as you can generate. Some you may never use, but it's always good to have it and not need it than to not have it and need it. Lots of information you'll really be glad you saved. In other words, I don't think you can really keep too much, and keeping it digitally these days is the option I think you have to go for in some method, is to make that available for everyone on your team and possibly some of your clients as well. Information that works to get your show logistics working better. Question that came on, how many tips on choosing the optimal location on the trade show floor? Well, let's see. One of the best spots on the traffic, highest traffic on the floor, often near the show floor entrance, of course. It's kind of like those big department stores where they put all the fancy displays right up front, right next to the front doors. You walk in, you take a look at them. So if you're right near the front, often that's the best place to be. Some shows are so busy that being at the front isn't all that great, simply because there's so much traffic right there, especially at peak times, that you're not going to get much of that. They're just going to walk by you, and they're just trying to get past you because there's too many people there. So it depends on the show. But really, that front is where most of the foot traffic comes. Beyond that, other high traffic areas are near food and restrooms. People want to eat, people want to use the restroom at some point, and if you're near those areas, you'll get good traffic. Another good spot would be at the corner where aisles cross. Now, if you have a corner booth that's positioned where aisles cross, not only will you get traffic coming from both directions, but your booth will have another open side, which gives you another chance to engage with attendees. It may be that you have a 10 by 10 and 2 of those sides are open. That's better than having a 10 by 10 with just one side open. It basically doubles your access to people walking by. So that's not a bad thing to consider. You also might consider trying to grab a space near one of the major show sponsors or a major attraction at the show. If you know, for example, that one of the big sponsors has a very big booth and there's an open space nearby that's small, you could certainly get some overflow traffic from them because they, by the fact that they're very big, are going to draw traffic. I think places to avoid would be in the back of the hall and across the aisle from a direct competitor. Of course, to make sure you get the best space, reserve it early. In fact, the best time to reserve next year's space is usually prior to packing up and leaving the current show. That way, you can get a jump on a good spot, and assuming that the hall will be laid out in the same way, you can get a feel for traffic flow at that moment. If you have a larger booth, try to get a spot where you're surrounded by smaller booths. If that's the case, your larger booth will stand out. Often they stick all the large booths, like at Expo West, which is a very popular show. A lot of the larger booths are back in the same part of the hall, so they're competing with other large booths. Some of them are sort of the edge of that area where they've got small booths with them, but they are the big attractor there. All right, let's see. What have we? I think that's all the questions I had prepared. So if you have any questions, let's see what Mel says. Who should I bring to the show to represent us in the booth? Sales, marketing, engineering, or chief executives? I think that really depends on what your goal for that particular show is. If they all can be there and the budget is available, I think they certainly all should be there. It also depends on the size of the booth. A large 20 by 20 booth, an island, for instance, needs enough people in that booth to man it. If you've got 7 people in a 10 by 10, that's not going to work logistically because you're just crowding people out of the booth, and that's not going to work. So, but if you have a 20 by 20 and you have 2 people there, that's not enough. So bring enough people to populate the booth and answer the questions that you think are important for that particular show and the goals of the shows. Because if you've been to the show before, you know what kind of questions are going to come up. And it's important that you have the right people there to answer those questions and direct to get the answers to those questions. All right. Any other questions? I'm happy to take them. I know this is there's a handful of people in the room. I think we have 7 or 8. I think one person's dropped out, but I appreciate you all being here. If you have any questions, stick them in the chat box and I'll answer them now. Otherwise, happy to email me and I'll answer those as well. I want to move on 1 or 2 more things here quickly. By the way, here's what I offered at the beginning. You can get a free follow-up checklist for trade shows. This is a new thing I'm working on. You can do it by text. How about that? Just text trade show list to 44222 and you'll get a quick email back or a quick text back, and it'll say, give you directions on, okay, to opt into the list to get the trade show checklist, just send me your email address. That's all it is. So it's very easy. It's a neat way to opt into a list. So text trade show list to 44222. I tested it. It works, so I'm hoping it'll work for you. Let's see here. I told you I would have a special package for you. This is what I call the Trade Show Success Workbook package. It's a 3-ring binder with a workbook version of the book, which I published last year, which allows you and your team to go through it step by step, really drill down to what you need to know, and what you need to do to succeed. You also get a signed copy of my book, and you get a thumb drive with the TradeshowGuy Exhibitor Toolkit in this particular package. The toolkit has a digital copy of the Trade Show Success Workbook, so you can print more copies if you'd like. It's got some trade show exhibitor resources, finding new booth resources if you're looking for a new booth. Budgeting and ROI spreadsheets are included. I've got 5 ebooks and special reports. I've also got 5 videos, especially for you if you are considering a new booth. Now, these videos are interesting, such as how to know when it's time for a new booth, how to pick an exhibit house, how to issue an RFP, for an exhibit project, how to sell the boss on a new exhibit, and 7 questions you'll never ask your exhibit house. These are all very important questions that if you're looking for a new booth need to be answered. And let's see here. If I do that correctly, I can display the offer and I can say, hey, you can get this for just $37. So that's in your right there. If you click that Get Yours Now, it'll take you to the link to do that. And happy to have that sent out to you. Really, we're not making any money on this. This basically covers cost of production and mailing. It's just to give you some added information if you're interested. So that'll stay on the right there till we close this down here in a moment. I will tell you we have another webinar scheduled for February 20th at 10 o'clock Pacific time, featuring Hiett Ives of Show Dynamics Incorporated out of Houston. This is called Trade Show Leads Guaranteed. He's a great speaker. He's been in the industry 40 years, and he's got some great stuff to share on how to guarantee leads, as he puts it, at your trade show. So that'll be coming up. And I think that's all I have. Again, feel free to reach out to me. Any of my contacts here, pick up the phone, call me, email me, and I will be happy to answer any of your questions or help you out in any way, shape, or form I can. And please join me for future webinars here. Just sign up or keep in tune with being on our list at TradeshowGuyWebinars.com or go to TradeshowGuy blog, TradeshowGuy exhibits. It's all right there. And thanks for attending.